Hi, Hannah. How are you today?
Hi, I'm doing well, kind of. How are you?
I'm doing good. I'm excited. Today we're talking about lecture notes, which I know you've been really excited to talk about for a while. But first, is there anything that you want to say about your week, classes maybe?
I don't know. I just feel like I can't really do anything right. I don't know. I feel like I'm messing up. I feel like I don't even think I did like the homework for this week correctly. I just it's kind of stressing me out.
I'm really sorry to hear that. So, why do you think that you weren't able to do the homework correctly?
I don't know. I feel like I want to, reach your expectations, but I'm not really sure if I'm reaching them. And I'm like, am I doing it right? Is this the way it's supposed to be done? Because like I feel like there's only one right way to do something.
Yeah, I totally feel that. And I want you to know there's multiple paths to success, and there's no one recommendation that's going to put you over the edge. I mean, as long as you are trying hard and making sure to just check in with yourself, monitor your progress, which we do together in these sessions, I think that you're on a great path.
Okay.
Um, yeah, yeah. Anything else that you want to bring up at all?
No, I guess we can get ready into our session. But thank you for that.
Yeah, for sure. So today we are going to be talking about taking lecture notes and reading. So, first, I would like if we could start with an aha activity. So, just one moment while I pull this up. Okay, I'm going to read a list of words out loud, and then I'm going to ask you to write down all the words you remember from the list.
Okay.
So, nap, tired, rest, yawn, nap, quiet, bed, blanket, pillow, dreams, nap, snore, pajamas, night, alarm. So now, once you're ready, go ahead and write down all the words you remember.
Okay, I wrote them down.
Amazing. So go ahead and tell me how many you got as I read this back to you. Nap, tired, rest, yawn, quiet, bed, blanket, pillow, dreams, snore, pajamas, night, alarm.
I got two of those words and I also wrote down sleep, but I guess that wasn't a part of the list.
Yeah, well, actually, many people that do this task write down the word sleep. And sleep wasn't on the list, and that's an actual perfect example of how we construct memories. So, this activity first shows just how difficult it is to remember what we've heard if we don't take some notes to review later. Would you agree with that?
Mm-hmm.
Have you ever failed to take notes in class and then suddenly been shocked at how much you have to remember after the fact?
Yeah, definitely.
Right. And second, we have a natural tendency to fill in gaps of information which what we think with what we think should be there. And your mind can actually add in information that was never presented.
Hmm.
Right. So there are so many different ways that we can take notes. And I just want to go over a few quickly with you.
Okay.
So let me share my screen and we will dive into it. So the point of that activity, if you had to guess, what would you think that it was?
The point, I guess, is that, to show that if you don't pay attention, sometimes you'll come up with things that aren't there and like you might not have the most accurate information, maybe. But I'm not sure if that's right.
No, that's exactly correct. And it just goes to show why it's so important to take good notes, right?
Mhm.
But that being said, lecture notes can be really tough to take. So I'm going to just go through some general note taking strategies that may help you ensure you have good notes with which to quiz yourself. Let me zoom in a bit for your convenience. Wonderful. So go ahead, read through these yourself. And when you're done, I want you to tell me the top two recommendations you saw here.
Okay. Okay. So the top two, I think, for me would be like marking main points and themes during a lecture.
Perfect.
And then another one is like if you fall behind, leaving some space in your notes because, like, instead of having to start fresh on a new page, you can go back to the actual, like, I guess, like the context, where the notes were.
Right. Amazing. Well, that's great. And now we have these stars here to indicate which one you know to prioritize. So
Mhm.
let's go down. And what I would like is for us to just quickly go through this example.
Mhm.
So this is where you could actually take your notes and you can leave about 1/4 of your page available to write down the keywords and questions, much like we practice in our self-quizzing.
Mhm.
Does that sound good?
Yeah.
Brilliant. So looking here, let's go through some of these lecture styles and talk about how you can get the most out of it in your notes. So, quickly looking from the general to specific, from the specific to general, and in chronological order, in which of these three is your professor for, let's say, your operating systems class most likely to present information?
I would say from the general to the specific case.
Brilliant. So, let's start right there. So, what is it? It's simply moving from the general to the specific, just like you said, right? And go ahead and give me an example of how your professor might use that in class.
So sometimes she'll like present some stuff kind of building up and then she'll give a specific like example. So she might present like a theorem from some like a scientist and she'll talk about it and then she'll go down to the specifics of how it actually applies to like the operating system.
Well, that's really interesting. So, how to get the most out of it? Go ahead and read this to yourself and let me know when you're done.
I am done.
Brilliant. So, importantly, you want to come up with your own examples, right? And notice that it says, moreover, this process increases your mental engagement and allows you to formulate questions, right?
Yeah.
And what's really nice about this is so long as you are getting down all the information that your professor presents, you're going to have quite a few examples of these specific cases, right?
Yeah,
So, do you think that this is something that you can try for me next time you have class?
definitely. Yes.
Amazing. I'm so excited. And I know you're feeling a little bit discouraged earlier, and I hope that this is something that will maybe help you feel better.
I think so. Yeah. Especially because it's something concrete I can do. And so, yeah.
Exactly. So now, with all of that being said, I would like if we could talk about how to address reading. So we've gone through how to take notes for lecture, but we haven't really yet talked about how we could address your actual textbook readings and all of those things. So hopefully, as you remember, we did talk about previewing in one of our previous sessions.
Yeah.
Brilliant. So that was only one side of the story. So notice in this document, preview, read, review, we actually continue on into reading.
Mhm.
So before every reading, what are you supposed to do?
You're supposed to preview like the
Right. And give me some examples. How do we preview?
you can look at like the subheadings or make like an outline of like with the subheadings and information, and like look at like the learning objectives.
No, that's exactly what you're supposed to do. Great. So now let's talk about reading. So, what is the number one most important thing when you are reading? What do you think is the most important thing to do?
I think it's to be like engaged when you're reading.
I agree with that. Being an active reader is the number one thing that is going to move you away from just taking in information versus actually understanding and comprehending that information.
Mhm.
Right. So I would like for you to read through each of these recommendations and tell me what stands out the most to you.
So I finished reading it, and I think the one that like stood out most to me was asking yourself a question before each paragraph or section, and then trying to answer it as you read.
Brilliant. And that actually harkens back to what skill that we've talked about before?
Previewing,
Self quizzing.
self quizzing.
Right. Do you see how that is very similar to self quizzing, where you're going back and trying to generate a question from the text without the help of the text?
Hmm.
Right. So I absolutely love that idea. And furthermore, I would say a really important thing here is to be realistic, right?
Yeah.
It's so easy for us to sit down and say, I'm going to read this 400-page textbook right here, right now. But how often does that actually happen?
Yeah.
Do
Hmm.
you struggle with that as well?
Yes, definitely.
I 100% agree. I'm always taking on more than I can read, and then I'm confused, but I don't finish everything. So that
Exactly.
is right, definitely something that is super important. And once you're done reading, once you've divided it into these small sections and you've asked yourself questions and you've taken some breaks, it's now time to review. So
Mhm.
go ahead and read this off to me.
Research shows that we forget about 40 to 50% of what we read within about 15 minutes, unless we take measures to recall it immediately.
Right. So can you relate it all to that where you've done like a huge reading and then suddenly you forget everything like a day later?
Yep, definitely. Yes.
Perfect. So quickly, let's go through some of these recommendations. They're telling us to recall mentally or orally the highlights of what we've read, to summarize what we've read, and to write notes and lingering questions in your margins. So, which of these three seems like the best tip for you?
I think summarizing what you've read.
Perfect. So, what I'm going to ask for next session is that you prepare summaries for at least one of your readings and you bring it in and we talk about it. I want to remind you these summaries do not have to be long, nor do they have to be hard, and it should be for your benefit. So,
Mhm.
how does that sound?
I think that sounds manageable.
Amazing. Great. So, now one last thing that I want to tell you. Note taking on readings and in class can be difficult, but the most important thing is that you know the bare minimum of note taking is a topics list.
Mhm.
So, just like our previewing outline for readings, if you are in a lecture and it's really difficult and you're lost and you don't even have, like any details at all, I want you to remember to just get down a topics list because with that, you now at least have a starting point. Does that
Mhm.
sound good?
Yeah.
Brilliant. Do you have any questions whatsoever for me?
I do not.
Wonderful. Well, this has been an amazing session. I'm looking forward to everything we get to talk about next week. Good luck with your note taking and reading.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.